For me, Mikel Arteta has found his team. This kid cannot be questioned because he knows what everyone's been saying about him. Trust me.
There's a call for David Raya to be considered for the Ballon d'Or.
He's got to go down as one of the best signings the club's ever made. This, for me, is the match where it all comes down to. And you're 4 games from greatness. And probably in the Premier League, you're really 1 game from doing it, because I think that is how big this West Ham game is.
I think when we're in this flow and when we're sort of clicking the way we are at the moment and everybody's believing, as it feels is the case, I don't think you can stop us. I think our biggest enemy is ourselves.
If we do this double, it will be the greatest season in Arsenal's history. It'll eclipse the Invincibles.
Hello, I'm Nick Bright and welcome to Inside Gooners, bringing you all the latest news and reaction from the mighty Arsenal. And we have done it! We are there for the first time since 2006. We're back in the big time, baby. The Champions League final, one of the biggest games of football, pan-Europe, in the world even. And to celebrate it with me, I'm pleased to say Harry Symeou is here. We've got Simon Collings as well. And dialing in, we've got Adrian Clarke in his Arsenal shirt, which is good to see. Love that. I'm delighted to say as well, this show is sponsored by BetMGM. Download the app or visit betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org. And please gamble responsibly. Right then, fellas, how are we feeling today? Simon, you were there. I think you were both there, actually.
Yeah.
So, Simon, you were in the press box. What was it like?
Incredible. I think it has to be the best night at the Emirates. I know there's been some special moments there, obviously, and I think people look back to the Xavi Barcelona night. You know, we've had great games, the Reece Nelson Bournemouth goal, but everything around last night, from the build-up, from the coach arrival, and to that final 5 minutes in injury time, where I think fans kind of really believed this was the moment. It was just incredible, and one of those moments where you were so privileged to be there, and a night that I think is going to live so long in the memory.
Look, sometimes in the press box, it's a little bit like, you know, we know that there's Arsenal fans in there, but people have to be a bit professional. Did that kind of go out the window for some people last night?
I think there were a few people who were very excited, but also the great thing with the press box at the Emirates is you do have the fans sort of swarmed around you, and they kind of lost their minds and just almost spilled into the press box. And it was just absolutely beautiful to see, because there's a lot of those fans who I think for so much of this season, the nervous energy, the tension has been building, and just to have that moment where you could just let it out. And even the players themselves, I mean, Arteta dancing on the pitch, like how often do we see Arteta do that? It was just a magical night, and just brilliant to be there.
And Harry, for you were there as a fan, right?
Yeah, I was there as a fan. I'm normally in the press box, so it was a bit of a change for me last night, but if I could pick one night to be in the crowd, that was the night, because I felt like we were just able to let loose last night in so many different ways. I mean, Simon mentioned it, arriving at the stadium was incredible. The atmosphere outside the Armoury in front of the roundabout as the coaches came in. And then the minute you got into the concourses, you could feel that the night was going to be a special one. Everybody was buzzing. Everybody was up for it. And it feels like, and dare I say this maybe prematurely, but it does feel like there is a belief among the group now, because you can see that they're playing in a much more relaxed manner. And that then transmits into the stands, I think, because the reaction that you get back when the team performs like that is so different. And going into that last few minutes, as you mentioned, I didn't feel stress. I genuinely didn't feel stress. I didn't feel nerves. I felt like we were doing our bit as fans to get the boys over the line, and collectively, you just always felt that we were going to get there, and we have.
Yeah. You've both mentioned the team bus arrival, actually. That looked like a real moment. You know, we don't always see that. It's one of the only times I remember seeing that at the Emirates. You know, do you think that had a kind of knock-on effect, I guess? It felt like the atmosphere outside rolled into the stadium. You had fireworks, you had flames, you had the big tifo. You know, it was a real European night at the Emirates.
Yeah, it definitely made a difference in terms of setting the tone for the night. It is something that we see quite a lot in European football, and obviously those of us that follow or cover the club know that Mikel Arteta has done a lot over the years to try and grow the sort of atmosphere and improve it and build on it. And if that means adopting some of the more European continental traditions like that, then I'm all for it. I'm not saying he was responsible for that. I know it was a fan group that organised it, which was great to see. But there's that connection now, isn't there, between the fans and the manager with regards to what we want from the atmosphere, and clearly it helps.
Yeah. Look, you two managed to make it here today to the studio. Rumour has it that Adrian Clarke was out partying last night. You were there as well, Clarkey. You're not with us in the studio today. Your thoughts after, what is a historic night for Arsenal?
Yeah, it was a sensational evening. Definitely the greatest night I've experienced at Emirates Stadium. I was led to believe that the players were sort of deliberately kept in the dark about the arrivals, about what was planned there, in terms of the supporters waiting to greet them on route to the stadium. And yeah, by all accounts, they were blown away by it, and it would certainly have lifted spirits and given the players that sense of occasion, which I think is really important, and they certainly lived up to it. It was glorious to see the stadium so united at the final whistle, the celebrations, the limbs everywhere, because we've all been on quite a long journey with this team. There's been so much good stuff, but ultimately also so many near misses, and let's hope there's not a near miss this time, but there could be. But this felt like a moment where we all deserved the right to enjoy the moment and to enjoy the fact that we're going to a Champions League final for the first time in 20 years and going there unbeaten in the competition so far. 14 matches against Europe's elite, haven't lost yet, just got to try and make it 15 just to seal the deal. So yeah, no, it was unforgettable. Privileged to be there. I'll never forget it.
And just how poetic, Adrian, was it that it was Bukayo Saka that's kind of fired us to that final? He looked really emotional on the coverage that I saw yesterday.
Yeah, he's the spiritual leader, isn't he, of the team? I mean, he was captaining the side from the start, but he's the epitome of what we want from an Arsenal player. He's a homegrown product. He's an Arsenal supporter, plays with fire in his belly, but he's also brilliant. And it's just great to have him back in the team, back impacting matches, because when he's feeling fresh, and I don't suppose he's feeling completely fresh, might be one or two little niggles, but maybe mentally he's been freed up a little bit. He missed 2 or 3 weeks, prior to the last week. And I think that probably has done him good, and he's come back absolutely flying. And just the alertness, the anticipation to sort of get away from his player on the edge of the 6-yard box and to tap that rebound in was quality. And yeah, it was fitting, I think, that he was the hero. But I tell you what, there was some colossal performances from a number of other players, and I'm sure we're going to get to those shortly. But yeah, Saka was special, but yeah, 2 or 3 of the others put in all-timers for me.
Yeah, well, let's go there then. Lewis Skelly, I guess, was a huge talking point, prior to kickoff. I was really surprised to see him starting the game. Zubamendi has been Arteta's trusted man in that position. Skelly came in against Fulham, did a great job, but the reason I thought he was going in against Fulham is because, Zubi needed a rest. Instead, he stuck with Skelly and he's absolutely smashed it.
Yeah, he was so good, and it's kind of crazy how quickly football changes. If you think, imagine a week ago saying, right, Miles, you're starting centre mid, Champions League semi-final, second leg. Like, before the Fulham game, he'd never started a game in midfield for Arsenal, and he goes and drops that performance in midfield in a Champions League semi-final. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, and one of the things from the Fulham game that I took when he played there was the kind of lift it gave the crowd. We've seen it with Saka and a homegrown player, but seeing Miles play centre midfield, winning tackles, the kind of lift it gave. And after that game, I think a few fans, I'd love to see him play there again, but it was like, Mikel won't do that. But I think it was the right call. It was maybe a bit of an emotional call because you'd kind of seen the team perform so well, but to play like that on that stage, I was just absolutely blown away by it. And yeah, I mean, for a player who's had a really difficult season where, he's kind of lost his position in the team, he's third choice left back, to go and do that, I just might take my hat off to him.
Yeah,
you got to say that the way that he sort of came in against Fulham and really grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck, to use that phrase, I think it made a real difference in terms of the stadium atmosphere. You're absolutely right. And going into the game, I was like, I'd quite like to see him play But as Simon says, I don't think it's going to happen. And when the team news came out, I was pleasantly surprised. There was a part of me that was like, oh, this is actually Mikel being really bold and brave. And it's the opposite to what people say about him a lot of the time, isn't it? And what I really liked about Lewis Skelly's performance yesterday was, even though when there was an opportunity to turn and run and carry it, he would do it, or to play the pass forward early, he would do it. He showed a maturity and a composure yesterday. There were moments where he sort of dropped deep to get the ball off the centre-halves. He'd have a look over the shoulder as the ball was coming to him, and he'd look at it and he'd go, no, there's no space for me to turn here. And I like that. He wasn't trying the same thing over and over again. He showed variation and composure yesterday, and I thought, it was a great performance.
Yeah, it must really help Clarkey that he's learning off of the likes of Declan Rice. He's a great player anyway. We saw what he could do last season, and he's been unlucky this season to fall to third choice left back. But when you're learning off of the likes of Declan Rice, off the likes of Martin Zubimendi, when you've got all those raw materials already, we've got a player on our hands here.
A serious player, and a player whose career at Arsenal has been potentially transformed in the space of 4 days, because third choice left back, hadn't played in midfield. There was a question mark over his long-term prospects at Arsenal, and all of a sudden, it now feels like Arsenal haven't just got Rice and Zubimendi, they've got a third absolute top-notch central midfielder, and this is just the start. I just think his character is unbelievably strong. His temperament is elite level, because, hand on heart, if it was me in that situation, kind of not in the bomb squad, but shunted to one side, barely getting a sniff of a game after what I'd produced the season before, it would have knocked me for 6. And I'm sure at times he must have felt that way. So for him to stay strong, keep believing in himself, and then to come in a different position, albeit probably his favourite position, and to produce the 2 displays he has, just shows what an unreal temperament he has. So that bodes extremely well for the future. And yeah, he fits the team like a glove. I like the forward passes that he plays, the ball carries. So yeah, for me, and this will feel harsh on Zubimendi, but for me, Mikel Arteta has found his team.
Wow.
For the running. The biggest games, 3 huge games in the Premier League, and then a Champions League final. I don't know. I don't know whether you want to mess around with it too much now. That starting 11, unchanged for the 2 matches, works, or it has worked. I wonder whether he's going to stick with it from here on in. Let's see.
It feels like a bit of a Mikel Arteta 4D chess masterstroke yet again. He brought in Christian Norgard, who has barely featured, let's be honest, for Arsenal. Probably going to be off, but we've already got the replacement ready-made in Miles Lewis-Skelly.
I saw that. It was a tweet I saw this morning where someone said Arteta had been secretly waiting till May to play Lewis Skelly in midfield, so no one could prepare for it. But I do agree with Adrian there, and I think that was when the fans saw the team ahead of this second leg of this game. You looked at it and went, love it. Just roll out the same team. It was so good against Fulham. And Arteta kind of said that. He said in the press conference, if you'd seen the number of teams he had on his iPad, you wouldn't believe it. And then in the end, he kind of just went with, it worked with Fulham and go again. And for West Ham at the weekend, I would feel the same. I think this is it. You're on such a roll. And even I think those players coming off the bench kind of understood what they wanted to do. Zubimendi, there was no sulking. He came on for his cameo. He put himself about. I think everyone has kind of collectively bought in and thought, right, this is it. Let's just go with it. And for Miles, I mean, what an opportunity he's got. He's got a month where he can transform his whole season and possibly his whole Arsenal career.
And possibly as well, I mean, I know this is a show about Arsenal, but there's a World Cup round the corner. Do you know what I mean? People in athletics talk about peaking at the right time, 4-year cycles, peaking for the Olympics. This is basically that, right?
Yeah, and the fact that he can play in a multitude of positions makes him a really appealing player. And this is the thing, I've been having loads of debates with people over the course of the season about who Thomas Tuchel should take, even in that left-back area. And they sort of throw up names like Livramento or Lewis Hall, and they're good players, right? But how many of them at that age, right, have got the experience that Miles has got now? He's been involved in title races. He's been involved in Champions League semi-finals. He's going to go to a Champions League final. I think that counts for something. That and his versatility makes him a good pick for me.
Well, he's only the third teenager to start 3 or more Champions League semi-finals.
There you go.
So, I mean, that says everything you need to know. Big up Miles Lewis-Skelly because, yeah, we love him. He's one of our own. We love it when a Highlander starts smashing it. So that's really great to see. Victor Gyokeres, then. He's had a tough first season, although the stats and the numbers are pretty good. Clarkey, what did you make of his performance last night? Because, you know, he put himself about, he held it up really well, and he played the number 9 role to a T, in my opinion.
I thought that Victor Gyokeres was colossal. I thought it was one of the best target man centre-forward performances I've ever seen from an Arsenal player. And that might sound over the top, but we don't often play with that style of centre-forward, or haven't done over the years. But he played that role absolutely perfectly. I mean, the 2 centre-backs couldn't wait for the final whistle. They couldn't wait to see the back of him because he tormented them, didn't he? The whole night, used his body, you know, knocked them around, held the ball up brilliantly, made fantastic runs. He pressed the absolute life out of the entire Atletico team. I don't know where he found the energy levels from. He didn't stop running, and most of those runs were full-on sprints. He missed a chance. It was an awkward chance when the ball skipped up, but in general play, he set the tone for what was, I felt, a warrior-like performance. Like, they weren't amazing, Atletico. I think we were well worthy of the win, but we still needed to play like warriors and to really be together as a team and to fight for every single duel. And the centre-forward often sets the tone for a team's performance, and he set the tone magnificently. For me, hands down, his best performance in Arsenal shirt, and he showed in this game why the club invested so much in him. What we've got to see now is that level week in, week out. He might not have the pace to get away from Premier League centre-halves as easily as he did in this game. So we've got to find a way to navigate around that. But in terms of his centre-forward skills and the way he held the ball and his movement, he was unbelievable. And I'm so happy for him. Like Miles Lewis-Skelly, this kid, he's not a kid now, he's a full-grown man, but Victor Gyokeres' character cannot be questioned, because he knows what everyone's been saying about him, trust me, and he's brushed that off, and he's gone and shown people what he's all about. That for me was a really special performance.
He's grown into the shirt, hasn't he? I think it's fair to say, Harry. You know, I know the goal tally, people point at that and say it's been a successful season. And I think it has been a successful season, but some of the performances were off. You know, we can't deny that. But he's not let that get on top of him. He's always worked hard, and he's getting his just rewards. And I think there's like fate, you know, because his granddad's Hungarian. And where's the final happening?
There you go.
In Hungary.
There you go. Now, it's an interesting one with Gyokeres, because I have been critical of him at times this season.
I think we all have.
And it's not anything to do with work rate, effort, desire to succeed. It's just been about, at times, the hold-up play maybe not being at the level we need it to be, the touch being a bit heavy, and that lack of connection between him and some of the players around him. But last night, as Clarkey said, I thought he was on another planet. And it's encouraging, because I thought his best half of football was the half away at Madrid. Then against Fulham, he goes up another level, and then he went up another level last night. So it feels like the trajectory, at least, is the right one at this moment in time. But there was one moment in the second half where it looked like everybody was starting to sort of flag a little bit. People were getting tired. And he just made this sprint where he dropped back and he'd gone through the midfield and went and chased all the way down to the goalkeeper. And I looked at that and I remember thinking, whether your touch is there all the time and the quality is there all the time or not, for me right now that doesn't matter, because the heart and the passion and the sort of determination you're showing, that is worthy of our support, and we've got to be behind him.
Yeah, fans get behind that, don't they? You know,
of course.
Yeah, they do. And you've got to think for Gyokeres as well. When he had that game at the Etihad, and Arteta goes with Havertz, that is Arteta saying, in the big games, I want Kai to play. And then all of a sudden, a week later, Havertz gets injured and he has to go back to Gyokeres. So Gyokeres knows, I'm not his guy. I'm not the one he wants. But for him to perform like that in the 3 games he's had has been absolutely incredible. And I think that does speak to his mentality. And I know that was something Arsenal liked about him, the fact he's worked so hard to get to this point, that he will give everything for this shirt and for the cause. And I just think it was a brilliant performance. And that was the best thing about it, was his hold-up play. Because that, all of us, when we've criticised him, that has been the issue, is holding up players. We know he can strike the ball great. We know he's got a good goal record. But that, being able to link players and get the team together. And I generally was saying, like, who are you and what have you done with Victor Gyokeres? Because this guy, and I know there's been some jokes on social media, was, he's back with his girlfriend. Maybe that's what's got him going now. But this past week, he's just been a different player, and it has transformed that attack. And as you say, the final being in Budapest does feel like the script is written for him.
There's something there. There's something in that. I wanted to get all of your thoughts, and Simon, I'll stick with you for now, just on David Raya, because there's been some people saying if we do the double, and it's a big if, nobody is counting our chickens because we've got to get both these games across the line. But if we do, there's a call for David Raya to be considered for the Ballon d'Or. He's got the Golden Glove again, or a share of, at least. So he's been sensational for us since we brought him in. But what do you make of that Ballon d'Or talk?
Well, I mean, it's a shout. It's interesting. I've seen Peter Schmeichel, who maybe a bit Goalkeepers Union, has been banging the drum for Player of the Year, and I think that is a genuine shout. I think for consistency from Raya, he's had that Wolves game was probably that one error, but since then I think he's been so good. I think we also saw in the Carabao Cup final the drop off with him and Kepa. I think for me he's been absolutely brilliant, and the kind of level. It's a bit like with Saliba as well, where I think his standards are so high that it sometimes gets lost a bit under the radar, what he does. And even last night, just his ability to come for crosses, the calmness he gives, and to win 3 Golden Gloves in a row. I mean, if you think back to when he joined and the kind of uproar there was around Ramsdale, who was great for Arsenal team, and the fans loved him, he was a cult hero. But the way that Raya has come and delivered, he's got to go down as one of the best signings the club's ever made.
Yeah, Harry?
Yeah, I'm not for goalkeepers winning Ballon d'Ors in general.
Rules it out straight away.
I'm not a part of the Goalkeepers Union, but David Raya's sort of consistency, as you say, has just been incredible. And the thing I think that maybe lets David Raya down in terms of the perception of him is that sometimes he can be seen to be playing really risky passes, and that can make people nervous. And I know that after the fact you can kind of process that and analyse that in a different way, but it's one of the things I hear in the stadium quite a lot is when he's playing those passes is people sort of groaning and saying, play it long and whatever. And I think that impacts the perception of him and how safe a pair of hands he actually is. The passes that he plays them because that's the instruction. He plays in a certain type of way because that's what Mikel Arteta wants from his goalkeeper. And most goalkeepers would make a catalogue of errors trying to play that way. So to be able to do it and minimise the errors and still be a wonderful shot stopper, really dominant in your box in terms of coming and claiming things, I think it evidences that in terms of all-round goalkeeping ability, he's one of, if not the best in the world right now. And so by default, Ballon d'Or talk is fine. Goalkeepers for me as Ballon d'Or winners, I'm not having it. Sorry,
not for you,
not for me.
Clarkey, you're going to say yes, David Raya, Ballon d'Or. Come on.
I'm going to disagree with Harry there, because for me, the 2 most important positions on the pitch are striker and goalkeeper. Ultimately, the games are won and lost in the boxes, aren't they? And both those positions, if you get them right, they will get you many more points per season. And I don't think there's any doubt that Raya has saved Arsenal some points this season, or earned Arsenal some points. I think he's the best shot stopper I've seen in goal for Arsenal in my lifetime. And David Seaman was an unbelievable goalkeeper, probably a better all-round goalkeeper at this stage. But in terms of shot stopping and athleticism and producing those jaw-dropping moments, he's the best I've seen. And I love him being between the sticks. And it just goes to show you that how ruthless Mikel Arteta is, and why that's a great quality. Because Ramsdale hadn't done anything wrong, but he identified a guy that he felt had a much higher ceiling, and he made that call. And that's why, you have got to trust that process that he talked about right from the beginning, because there'll be decisions made where you do question them. But that Raya decision has to go down as well. It's top three for me of the Arteta regime. So yeah, terrific signing.
Yeah, we've seen it a few times, haven't we? You know, fans were gutted to see Emil Smith-Rowe leave, but then we upgraded there. Fans were gutted to see Kieran Tierney leave. We upgraded there. You know, Mikel Arteta's not afraid to do that kind of thing. But Simon, here's a question for you. How good's this final going to be? Because whichever way you look at it, you've got us, one of the best defences in Europe, against probably one of the best attacks in Europe in Bayern Munich or PSG.
Well, I think it's the same as boxing, isn't it? You know, styles make fights, and I think you can say that about this, whichever team it is, whether it's Bayern Munich or PSG, and there's going to be a great narrative either way as well, because if it's PSG, the whole revenge from last year's semi-final where Arsenal obviously came so close, and if it's Bayern Munich, it's Harry Kane, isn't it? And it depends if you're a glass half full, glass half empty, and you're an Arsenal fan, you think, how great would it be to stop Harry Kane winning the Champions League? And conversely, how painful would it be to lose the Champions League to Harry Kane?
Which way are you?
I think personally, but I think for Arsenal in terms of the opposition, I think Bayern Munich would suit them more. I think they're a bit more fallible at the back than PSG. And I also look at it from that in the same way of Spurs going down and Arsenal being part of that. I think for Arsenal to beat Kane, I mean, can you imagine the joy that would add to it?
He's an Arsenal fan, though. You know, we've all seen the photo.
He can get back for the parade on a Sunday. It's fine.
Harry, I guess the same question to you. You know, out of those two fantastic teams, you know, and a lot of people will probably be watching this once the game's already happened, but it hasn't happened yet for us. So who would you rather face off against?
I'd rather face Bayern.
Okay.
I agree with Simon. I think that they're a bit more fragile defensively. I think they're a side that you can get at, and I also think, you know, to Simon's point that styles make fights, I think our defenders and our defensive unit is better at dealing with pace, power, hold-up play than it probably is the trickery and the sort of wizardry that PSG have within their front line. I think the unpredictability of PSG's front line makes them so difficult to defend against. So I'd rather that we play Bayern. I agree. I'm one of those fans that worries about the downside more than looks forward to the upside. So the idea of Kane beating us in the Champions League final is hard. But let me just tell you this, right? We're delighted to be in the final. We're all buzzing. It's amazing. But it's going to be stressful, because there are going to be long periods, whichever one of those teams that we play against, where we don't have the ball, where we've got to be in shape, and it's going to be nervy. But listen, I think as fans, we're always sitting there and we're always saying, you know, we need the team to go out and show bottle and not allow the emotions to take over and all the rest of it. I think as fans, we need to be mature enough to handle it as well. And I think at times over the course of the season, we've shown cracks as supporters in terms of having wobbles and that not then helping the team and making things worse for the team. So I think we all need to be in it together, but I think either way it's going to be a nervy final, put it that way.
And just before I get Clarkie's, preference between those two teams, you're so right, Harry, actually. And I think there's been a real turning point amongst the supporters, actually, in the last couple of weeks. Half-time for the Fulham game, it was almost like another goal went in, wasn't it? You know, like the fans, you know, Mikel, a few weeks ago when we lost to Bournemouth, he said to bring the dinner, bring your breakfast, you know, all of that stuff. The fans actually are now, you know, and it's really nice to see. At crunch time, you know, there was no wriggle room left anymore after we lost against Bournemouth and Man City, and the fans have really turned up.
Yeah, they have. And it makes the world of difference. You know, people say, oh, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's down to the players. Of course it matters. Just the whole environment that you're in can make the world of difference. It's like last night, right? We all felt in the in the late stages of the game that we were going to do it because of the mood. If everybody was nervy and groaning at every misplaced pass, then that adds to the fear in your mind, and then that adds to what the players are having to deal with as well. So it does make a big difference.
Yeah. Right, coming then, Clarkie, PSG or Bayern Munich, what do you reckon?
I prefer Bayern. Yeah, I'm going with the guys. Yeah, because of the defence. I think they're very, very get-attable at the back. I mean, Elise is an unbelievable talent who would cause us problems. Luis Diaz, Harry Kane. That front three is scary. But the rest of the team, I think we could hurt Bayern, albeit we'd have to suffer for long spells of the game. But PSG is similar. I just feel they're slightly more rounded. I think their central midfield is a bit more robust. I think their back line is slightly stronger than Bayern Munich's as well. But it would be nice to get revenge on PSG also. So I wouldn't be upset at all if they were our opponents. We gave them a world of problems in the second leg, didn't we, over in Paris last year in the semi-final. So, I think that Arsenal have a genuine 50-50 chance. We will be underdogs, and I think it's right that we'll be underdogs, but we absolutely have a chance to win the game. We won't allow it to become a free-for-all. It will be a more tactical match, I'm sure of that, whoever it is. But yeah, it will be uncomfortable for long periods of that final. It will be an uncomfortable watch. But I remember the 1994 Cup Winners' Cup final. I was lucky enough to be there in Copenhagen, and trust me, we suffered that night because we were the underdogs. They were the star-studded side, Parma at the time, and it was a proper backs to the wall effort. It feels to me maybe that's the Arsenal way when it comes to winning major silverware. So bring it on. I think it might be written in the stars that it's 1-0 to the Arsenal in Budapest. I would certainly love that to be the case.
Yeah, I think one thing's for certain. I think we all agree on it's not going to be anything like the Bayern PSG first leg where it is swashbuckling, every attack led to a goal. I think the Arsenal way is very much Mikel Arteta wants control. He's going to break it up. It's going to be nervy. And yeah, I think Clarkie's onto something there with a low scoring.
By the way, that kind of game is only fun when you're not involved in it. It's not fun when you're involved in it at all.
Yeah, that's true. Right, let's turn our attention back to the Premier League then, and God, what a difference a week can make. You know, it feels totally different going into this West Ham game, and I know we're all in a celebratory mood after the fact that Manchester City dropped points. We've now got a little bit of breathing room, but Simon, how quickly do the team need to forget about getting through to the Champions League final and just focus on that West Ham game?
Yeah, I mean, that needs to be the kind of mental reset from Arteta because they're going to be on such a high. The fans the same. And going back to the Monday night and the Everton game, I do think that was the kind of the kick-start for the atmosphere.
Yeah. For sure.
For the game, because every fan turned up there, and when you buy your first pint, the first thing you go is, I see the game last night. You know, it's in our hands now. And I do look at these last three Premier League games, and this West Ham one for me is the title decider. I know I feel like that's been said a lot by pundits and people, but that is the one where you look at that and you think, if you beat West Ham, you've then got Burnley at home, who are down with a caretaker manager, and then Palace away on the final day, who should be preparing in 3 days' time for a Conference League final. So this, for me, is the match where it all comes down to. And yeah, I would think from Arteta, mentally you reset, but in terms of the team, I would just be like, let's go again. You guys are in such a good flow. It's working. We don't need to change anything. Very simple, light touches. Just play how you've done the last two games and you're there. You're 4 games from greatness. And probably in the Premier League, you're really 1 game from doing it, because I think that is how big this West Ham game is.
Yeah, Harry, Simon's right, isn't he, in terms of, like, we've been stung in the past by West Ham. You know, Jared Bowen, he seems to always play well against us. They've got some dangerous players. They're fighting for their lives. This needs to be a business-like performance, and we need to make sure that we take the 3 points, because I agree with Simon. If we win this game, I'm touching all the wood around here right now, but if we win this game, I think we win the league.
Yeah, do you know what I think works against us a little bit? I think I'm right in saying that Tottenham play on the Monday night. Is that right? That Tottenham are playing on the Monday night against Leeds.
Yeah.
Because I kind of wish that Tottenham were playing before. If Tottenham, not that I ever want Tottenham to win a game, but if they win a game before we play West Ham, that could potentially really knock the stuffing out of West Ham, who have lost control of that situation now. Look, they'll be up for it. It's a place that on occasions can produce a good atmosphere. It's not the most atmospheric stadium, generally speaking, but I just think we're a much better team than them. And I think when we're in this flow and when we're sort of clicking the way we are at the moment and everybody's believing, as it feels is the case, I don't think you can stop us. I think our biggest enemy is ourselves. And as long as we're okay in ourselves, which it feels like we are right now, we should get through that West Ham game. And I agree with Simon. If we get through that one, nothing's a given in the Premier League, and you can never, say that it's done before it's actually done. But I just feel like West Ham overcoming that hurdle would just be huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, I agree. Clarkey, how do you see it playing out? Do you think it's going to be a real nervy performance from Arsenal, or do you think we're going to go into it with a bit of swagger off the back of this, Athletic win and the win against Fulham?
Swagger. That's what I want to see. I want to see high tempo football. I want it to be intense. I want it to be like the sort of first half when we were looking, every time the ball went out of play, the ball kid gave the ball back quickly, and we went and we played it. Same against Fulham, wasn't it, last weekend? Quick restarts, bang, we go again. We were relentless, and I think that is the best way, because West Ham might not be able to live with that if we're too controlling and a little bit slow, and we don't have that tempo and that drive. Then maybe West Ham, who will put everybody behind the ball, maybe they'll contain us, which is a bit of a problem. And then of course Jared Bowen and co on the counter attacks will carry a threat. So it's a dangerous game. 100% it's dangerous. But if we treat them like they're top class opponents and really, go in with that strong mentality, we should really be too good for them. And we've emptied London Stadium a couple of times very, very early. Oh, I would absolutely love it if we could empty that ground again, because that would be a sign that we're on our way to the final two games with a nice healthy advantage. But yeah, I would go for the same team, same intensity, and yeah, hopefully very similar result.
Well, Clarkey, I'll stick with you. Manchester City dropped points. We've kind of mentioned it and everyone obviously knows about it. But, I was quite surprised that they dropped points against Everton, because when they went 1-0 up, I just looked at it like I can't see anyone in this Everton side scoring. It's a little bit gutting. Aren't we greedy now? We're sitting here going, it's a little bit gutting that they only dropped, they managed to get a draw, rather than dropping all 3 points. But look, it was a big moment in the title race, because I was looking at the Bournemouth game. I don't know about you. The Bournemouth away game was the one that I was looking at, where they potentially could drop points. But, for them to drop points against Everton, fantastic for us. How were you feeling after that one?
Yeah, well, I worked on the game. I was co-commentating for talkSPORT International. So it was a true test of my impartiality.
How'd you get on?
I mean, there was a lot of silent celebration from me while the commentator Kev Hatchard was describing the Everton goals. There was a lot of fist pumping, and look, when Doku scored the equaliser, it felt like a dig in the ribs. I'm not going to lie, it was really, really annoying. But when Jamie Carragher said afterwards that Arsenal fans will be devastated by this, he was so wrong.
Yeah.
Because the Arsenal fans weren't devastated. They were delighted that they dropped 2 points, Manchester City. Yeah, it would have been nice to have 3. But with the goal difference advantage of 4, and Burnley to come, remember, I think there's a good chance that we might be able to afford to draw a game and still win on goal difference. Not that we want that to happen. So I think we're in a brilliant position, but we've got to make it count against West Ham. The reason Everton were able to come back against City was because Everton became hostile, they became abrasive, they really got physical with City, and it rattled them. Not many teams are bold enough to do that, and Everton did. And luckily for us, two of the most physical teams in the Premier League, who are highly motivated, looking to get in the Champions League or certainly the Europa League, are Brentford and Bournemouth. And they're two teams stylistically that should, in theory, be able to pose the same problems that Everton did. So, yeah, I was really encouraged by the weakness and the fragility that City showed up against that abrasiveness. So please, Brentford, please, Bournemouth, don't disappoint. Get after City, because I think you can get some joy.
Yeah, I mean, Simon, there's a world, and I'm not trying to jinx anything here, but there's a world where we could lift the trophy at home against Burnley. I know it's a Monday night and people aren't necessarily happy about that, but there is a world where we could lift the trophy.
There is a world, yeah, and the fact that it's a Monday night, I think, will annoy people even more if that is the case. I do look at even the Brentford game. I know the Bournemouth one I definitely looked at, with it being Iriola's last home game, fighting for Europe as a big one that I circled. But even Brentford, the Brentford have had some good results there. I remember years ago they won there when Ivan Toney scored the winner, so that'll be a difficult game. And I think for City now, there was a lot of talk on Arsenal, wasn't there, going into this 5-game series. Arteta called it about mentality and bottling it and choky, but that's what City did at Everton. City were in a great position there, and yes, they got a late equaliser, but they stumbled there mentally. They didn't deliver, and it would have been great if it was 3 points. But I think for Arsenal and Arteta and that squad now, the message he'll be saying to them this week is like, it's in our hands now. We do not need to worry about any more Man City games. If you don't want to watch them, you don't want to watch them. Literally, we win our 3 games, it's done. So don't worry about City. It doesn't have to be, scoring more goals, who's done this. You just focus on yourself. And I think for Arsenal to have that with 3 games to go, that clarity and that ease of being like, this is entirely in your hands now. Do not worry about City.
It's amazing, Harry, isn't it? Just how, Manchester City dropping points has galvanised Arsenal. The belief is back. But even before that game, the performance against Fulham, even the performance against City themselves, in the last few weeks, we seem to be finding the Arsenal of earlier on in the season. Not quite necessarily the same, but, we found a second wind.
Yeah, and it's weird, isn't it? Because as an outsider, it's really difficult to know what's changed. Like, what has changed? Has there been some sort of wake-up call? Has there been some frank conversations behind the scenes, maybe? Have people sort of realised the magnitude of what we're on the cusp of potentially achieving? And as a result, there's been a refocus. I don't know exactly what it is, but that game the other night, the Man City game, you're absolutely right, guys, to say that Arsenal fans were delighted with it. And yes, it would have been easy to sort of see that late equaliser go in and allow it to kind of deflate you a little bit. But it's as simple as that. It's back in our hands. We're in control. And I have to say, going into that game, that was the one I was looking at more than Bournemouth.
Interesting.
Because I felt like Everton could rough them up. Bournemouth are really intense in the way that they play the game, but I thought Everton could be the rough side that really rattled them. And Everton's support are always behind them at home, particularly when they show physical commitment. You always get that. And actually, I went from feeling really deflated at half time when I saw that City were 1-0 up, because for me, that was the game.
Yeah.
To literally jumping up and down in my living room.
when your team's not even playing.
And my team's not even playing, exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is funny because, I'm exactly the same as you, Harry. I saw that guy, I was watching it. I put myself through the... Because I know some Arsenal fans are refusing to watch.
I avoided the first half.
Okay.
I text every friend of mine that would normally message me during the game. And I said, sorry guys, not watching the game tonight, not interested. And one of my mates phoned me at half time. I was like, this guy never calls me. Why is he calling? It's normally a text. And he goes, Harry, we need support. Everton are really struggling. We need support. You need to put it on, as if I made any difference whatsoever.
Well, you did, mate.
I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I watched the second one.
Listen, sometimes you have to do a bit of a hate watch. You know what I mean? And
it was that, believe me.
Let's be honest. Manchester City, Clarkey, they only managed to beat Burnley 1-0. I know they had loads of chances, but they've not looked like, when they beat us, a lot of Arsenal fans' fear was that they were going to go on one of those mammoth runs that they're known to go on, bang goals in left, right and centre. But they really haven't. And, that must be adding, Arteta probably won't say it and none of the players will come out and say it. But, watching Manchester City falter and stutter a little bit, that's going to be helping as well.
Yeah, definitely. It will put a spring in the players' steps. It'll give them a little bit of extra confidence, maybe. Look, City are still on a ridiculous run. They lost to Manchester United. It's their only defeat since November. They have been, very, very difficult to beat. But there've been a lot of draws. The Forest game at home, you would never have expected them to have dropped points in that game, but they did look vulnerable. If you take it to City, cracks will appear. There's no doubt about that. So I really, really hope that their upcoming opponents, show that courage and bravery and really try to get after them, because I think that they can get some joy. But yeah, look, it lifted the players at Arsenal definitely ahead of the Atletico game, and I think they'll enjoy having it in their own hands again. The issue we had before though was when it was in our hands, we were looking over our shoulders and we weren't playing to our very best. I hope this time around that changes. But you mentioned the Burnley tight game with City. That's a warning, isn't it? There is no absolute gimme in the Premier League. So, any of even though we probably would cherry pick, these 3 fixtures would be high on our list of choices, it doesn't mean that it's nailed on that we win them. And I won't hear any talk of, it's done. It's absolutely not done. But I think the past 3 games have shown us that this Arsenal team has turned a corner, and they've just got to stay on the right track now, not deviate, not try to do anything different, just fly down that run-in road and get the job done.
Yeah, it's a really good point you make, Clarkey, actually. And Simon, Adrian's right. We were looking over our shoulders, but I think that was because we had the Manchester City game and everything was building towards that City game away at the Etihad. So much was riding on that game, whereas now it's in our own hands again. Yes, we're still going to have City probably breathing down our neck till the final day. I mean, I hope not, but, you know, I'm looking at worst case scenario. But I just think the team have learnt lessons, and I don't think we're going to let it slip again. I just really don't feel that.
I think the City game, when we look back, hopefully at the end of the season, will be a sort of turning point in the way that I know Arsenal didn't get the victory there, but kind of having that moment, the performance was good, and also the kind of mentality coming out of it. I think a lot of fans were more buoyant than they thought they should be. And it was the same with the players. I mean, that clip of Rice went viral very quickly when he said it's not done. And it was the same with Arteta, where he basically instantly, the mental reset was 5 games to go, it's a new league, and that's how they've approached it. And I think Arsenal have attacked it in the right way. And I agree with you. I just feel like the momentum that's been built really since the Fulham game, I think, and that's why I'd want to stick with the same team, feels so great. And it just feels like this wave from the fans, from the players, from the manager, it's just building so strongly. And I just... It's hard to look like Arsenal being stopped, which seems mad when you think 2-3 weeks ago it was hard to see how they're going to get going.
Everyone confident?
I am confident. I am now. Yeah, I've the way the Fulham and Madrid games have just completely changed my whole outlook on it. And even from a tactical point of view, like I think maybe sort of 2-3 weeks ago, we could have sat in here deliberated about, who's the best team, who plays where, who plays there. Whereas I think probably all 4 of us now would go, that's your team. You just roll that. That's your team. You go with it now.
I'm not going to say I'm confident just because as a fan, the nerves will always have a grip on me and I can't shake that off. But do I feel more confident than I did a couple of weeks ago? Absolutely. And do I believe that the players have overcome whatever mental hurdle it was that they were falling at? Yeah, I do. I think something's clicked. I think something's changed. We're still going to have to live and breathe every single moment of it, and it's going to be stressful. There's no doubt about that. But fingers crossed we get it done, and I'm certainly more confident now, yeah.
Clarkey?
Yeah, I want more goals. Obviously, we got 3 against Fulham, but it's another game where we scored a max of 1. So we can't get too ahead of ourselves. Yes, we are improving. We look more like our old selves, but we need to score multiple goals in at the weekend probably, and certainly against Burnley. So I'd like more of that. But yeah, I've been optimistic all season. You know that. I said at the start of the season, I didn't think we'd win a trophy this year. I thought we'd win 2, and I didn't think it would be these 2. But I'll absolutely take it if that prediction is proven correct. And I do believe in the team. I believe that they can absolutely do this double. And if we do this double, it will be the greatest season in Arsenal's history. It'll eclipse the Invincibles. It'll eclipse the doubles. It will be absolutely amazing. And they're on the cusp of history. Just got to go out there and grab it. And from what I've seen in recent games, it looks like the team are ready to go out there and grab it now, which makes a hell of a difference.
Now it's time for our bet builder with BetMGM. Remember, you can download the app or head to betmgm.co.uk. Right, Harry, I'm going to start with you. What are you going for?
I'm going to go for Arsenal to hit the woodwork. I keep talking about how nervy it's all going to be, and it's just the Arsenal way, isn't it, for us to be sort of agonisingly close to something before we eventually get there.
I mean, hopefully we're already 1-0 up at that point. But
fingers crossed.
Yeah, Simon?
I'm going to go Arsenal to win, but both teams to score. I think we spoke a bit about Bowen, and I do have some fears around him.
You're getting me nervous already thinking about it. Right, Clarkey, what you got?
Yeah, Arsenal to have over 4.5 shots on target, please. That's 5 shots on target or more. We've achieved it in 19 of our 35 matches so far. Our average is just shy of 5 a game. Surely we'll eclipse that, or at least level it this time around against West Ham. We've got to go for it, right?
Yeah, Clarkey with the stats. He's good, isn't he? He's good.
Love it.
Right, so just to reiterate for you then, that's Arsenal to win and both teams to score. Arsenal to hit the woodwork and over 4.5 Arsenal shots on target. Right, that is all we have got time for on today's Inside Gooners. Thank you for your company, of course, on this celebratory show. And thank you to my guests, to Simon Collings, to Harry Symeou, and to Adrian Clarke. Remember, this show is sponsored by BetMGM. Download the app or visit betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org, and please gamble responsibly. And come on, you Arsenal! Just me.